live TV. So let's discuss now with Congressman Denny Heck. He's a member of the House Intel and Financial Services Committees. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
First, let me ask you about this Washington Post story that broke tonight. The president was looking for cover from the Attorney General, Bill Barr, on the Ukrainian call, and Barr declined to give a press conference on that. What do you think?
I was stunned. I mean, he has not hesitated whatsoever heretofore, that is Attorney General Barr, to leap into the fray and provide a defense even where one isn't warranted. I'm painfully reminded of what he did within seconds of receiving the Mueller report to cast it in the light he did before he probably even had time to actually read and digest it. So I was taken aback by it. Perhaps it is a measure that he sees of the gathering storm clouds on the horizon, and he's being just a tad bit cautious here. But frankly, I'm not terribly trusting of Attorney General Barr, so we'll see.
Yeah. You know, these public hearings are they're so important. We've now had at least 5 witnesses testify privately that President Trump tried to shake down the Ukrainians for personal gain. What is the story that's emerged from the testimony, and how will you lay that out to the American people, Congressman?
The story is that the president tried to shake down the Ukraine for help in his domestic political contest. Look, the truth of the matter is that most Americans aren't going to have an opportunity, Don, to watch all of these hearings. I hope they do. I hope they'll make an effort. But if they can only watch one, I hope they watch Ambassador Taylor, who's up first, because frankly, first of all, he's a patriot. He's a West Point grad and a Vietnam veteran and a career-long diplomat of noteworthy accomplishment. Secondly, he, more than the rest, really ties it all together. Now, they all corroborate one another's testimony and the fact pattern that is here. And by the way, I would frankly suggest to you there is more evidence gathered thus far to suggest that the president did shake down the Ukraine and threaten to withhold military assistance, creating an increased vulnerability among our strategic partner. Then there is evidence to support the idea that the sun will come up in the east tomorrow. I think we're way beyond that. Thirdly, I think what they're going to hear from Ambassador Taylor is a pretty good, brilliant construct of why it is that the Ukraine is important to America's national security and why they are a strategic partner and an ally in our effort to check the malign intent and aggression of Russia.
Speaking of Ambassador Taylor, his transcripts from his testimony were released today. And let me just read from his transcript. That was my clear understanding. Security assistance money would not come until the president committed to pursue the investigation, meaning the president of Ukraine committed to pursue the investigation. I observed that in order to move forward on the security assistance to Ukrainians, we're told by Ambassador Sondland that they had to pursue these investigations. So why is he up first? Why is he the first witness?
I don't know. I think perhaps that's a decision the chair made because he had a particular ringside seat in which he saw how all of this came together and does tie it together so well. But there may be another factor here, Don. It's not talked about much, but it's worth noting. Ambassador Taylor kept contemporaneous notes for all of these phone calls. So the truth of the matter is that incredibly powerful opening statement that was released to the public, that was based on his reference to his note-taking. And in fact, even his testimony before us during the deposition was based on his contemporaneously taken notes. So this is almost as good as a video recording of what went on during that whole sordid affair.
How concerned are you about the public opinion and getting your case across to the public? That's very important to you, right?
Well, of course it is.
Well, I wonder because, you know, you see the president and all of his supporters saying, read the transcripts, and most of them have not read the transcripts. But if you read it appears to me, for most rational people, if you read that transcript, it does not exonerate the president.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting my own T-shirts made up that said, please do read the transcripts. Yeah. Because I think of all the evidence that's been brought forward, and it's a mountain of evidence. The single most incriminating one, of course, is the memorandum of call between President Trump and President Zelensky, in which he uttered those 10 famous words. I would like you to do us a favor, though.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate your time.
Sir.